Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans. Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Jake.
This is Mac.
And we are coming to you from the great state of Iowa, or if you're our governor, the great state of denial.
I don't know, with all the ice storms and everything that just kind of moved through. I don't know. Can you deny that it sucks?
I'm more just bitter about how we are deciding not to bother with COVID. I promise I won't rant about it all episode or anything like that, but it's a little fresh today for me. But yeah, so we are recording this a few days early. We will be not discussing the Ba show. This will come out during the Ba show. I'm not exactly sure when, maybe day 7 or 8, doesn't matter, because we won't be talking about it. By the time that rolls around, we would probably be out of date anyways. So let's see. Why don't we say welcome back to friend of the show and resident sumo trainer, Ed. Ed, how you been doing?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
We are hanging in there. The legs are a little bit less sore every time we talk to you.
Good news.
And Ed of the United States Sumo Federation, helping us out with some training goals here. This week we've already covered the basics of how to do shiko, the high leg stretch move, the traditional sumo exercise. We've also covered suriashi, the basics of sumo movement, going back and forth across the ring, keeping those elbows tight and all that. And we've been incorporating those into our daily workouts. Just as a recap, Ed, how much of those should we be doing, and what kind of progress should we be expecting as we move along into week? What are we at? Like 6 or 7, somewhere in there?
Pain,
yes.
So Shiko, we should be doing 200 a day every day now, and kind of settling into that rhythm. In terms of progress, it should be getting easier and easier. But the thing about Shiko is once it gets easy, that's when it becomes very easy to skip a day, because you start to feel a little bit overconfident, like, oh yeah, I can do this, it's no problem. And then you skip, and then you skip the next day, and you skip a third day, and you kind of fall off. So, it's a good mental exercise in every single day doing something that's a little bit unpleasant. So no matter how easy it gets, it still never feels that good. And it lets you know too, like if you've eaten bad, if you've had a couple drinks the night before or whatever, your shiko are going to let you know. So they're good for that reason as well.
So what I'm hearing then is we need to experiment with different types of foods and then do shiko to see, okay, was that a good food for sumo or bad food for sumo?
There we go. Yeah. I'm willing to test all foods.
And then for suriashi, I think about 20 a day is good for me. I'm not sure really what I'm basing that on, but that's just my experience training. When I trained in Japan for a little while, I get through about 20 at the start of practice to warm up, and that's what I tend to do.
So that's 20 repetitions of 15 feet, or?
Yeah, 20 repetitions of 15 feet.
Got it.
So like 10 times there and back, or however you set it up.
Gotcha. Yeah, just as a baseline. I just kind of cleared out some space in my concrete floor back room of the basement, and that's where I just go back and forth. I've added a yoga mat to my shiko in the basement, and that has definitely made my feet feel a little better.
Man.
I'm surprised. I would think by now you'd be building up some calluses. Your feet are toughening up.
It's more so the impact and also the friction of the concrete. I don't know how they did it, but they managed to get some awfully slippery concrete down there. So I don't know. Regardless, though, that has helped me out a little bit. But yeah, the suriashi is definitely building up a little bit of callus on the outside of my foot where I slide there. That's definitely been noticeable.
When you say outside of your foot, do you mean big toe?
Yeah, big toe, maybe a little bit on the ball of the foot, but mostly big toe.
Okay. You might just want to make sure you're not turning your foot too much in and dragging it. Try to make sure.
I think I may have said outside of the foot when I meant inside of the foot.
Inside. You want to make sure you're not turning it too much. You want to make sure you're keeping your the sole of your foot more or less flat, level with the ground. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So not rolling over.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, my my instinct, the natural motion, I tend to lift up a little bit. The heel goes a little higher, and the foot turns a little bit inside, and the big toe takes the brunt of the slide. But as much of the foot as possible staying flat on the ground is the goal here, right?
Yes.
And then you want to keep your feet kind of at an angle, correct?
Yeah. You want to keep them turned at an angle. So I'm forgetting trigonometry. I don't know the exact angle, but turn them all the way out and then go like a third of the way back in. That to me is about a perfect angle. I think I recently saw Amuru describe it as like a perfect 45-degree angle. I'm not sure if that's what he meant. I think you want to have it a little bit more turned out than that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and the other thing that is not natural for me is keeping the elbows in, of course, as we're shuffling forward, back and forth. But my body wants to do the opposite arm with each foot, as if you were running. You pump the opposite arm when you do each leg. But with Suriyashi, you want to keep them the same side, and that's a little unnatural to start with. But it's getting a lot more natural as I do it more.
I'm glad you said that, because that is exactly what Teppo is for, about coordinating your hands with your feet, and that's what we can work on this week.
Awesome. Yeah, so Teppo being one of the other exercises that each of us can do alone in our quarantined basements for the time being. Ed, why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how we should incorporate it into our routine?
Sure. So this is the sort of the first upper body thing we're doing. And probably a lot of people have seen this, right? If you're a fan of sumo or you're familiar with sumo, this is the thing that looks like they're sort of palm striking a wooden pole over and over again. So the tricky thing for you guys is going to be to find something that you can use for Teppo at home. Obviously, in America, we don't have access to these nice kind of smooth wooden poles for training. So I use a punching bag that I turn upside down. So it's like an 80-pound heavy bag. I turn it upside down, so I have like most of the weight stored up top, and I use that. But I have to put it up on a stand to make it work. In the past, when I lived in other places, I had like slightly larger like supporting poles that I could use. So the first trick is going to be to find something you can use for this that doesn't mess up your hands. And then, just like our last couple of videos, the place to look for this is, once again, Amita Sumo channel. And he's got Sumo Training number 4, Teppo. And so basically what you're doing here, and you'll see this on his channel if you take a look, is you're coordinating the striking aspect of sumo, right? Like the thrusting, pushing aspect of sumo with the feet. So you kind of get in your good Chigoshi stance, just like the bottom of a shiko almost. And then you'll strike with the right hand and slide forward with the right foot, and then come back and do the same thing again with the left. And it's just this repetitive process, kind of getting that basic sumo movement into your brain.
Gotcha. So we should be partially crouched as we're doing this, like staying in form the whole time.
Yeah, staying in form the whole time. So if you're not, if you haven't really been keeping up with the shiko and suriyashi, this is going to let you know, because you've got to be comfortable down in that low sumo stance.
Gotcha. So I imagine we're doing a lot of what we were doing in motion with the suriyashi. So similar format. Keeping those elbows in, the hands turned out. And what part of our hands are we striking with?
So you're striking with sort of like I don't even know what this part of your hand is called, but sort of the meaty part of your hand near, I don't know.
Down towards the
more toward the
down
palms,
towards the wrist,
or more on the side.
With the palm of your hand, but like when you make contact with the pole, it's going to be like, this is what you're going to hit with first.
Okay,
gotcha. So like the meaty part of your hand, closer, more on the pinky side than the thumb side.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to feel your whole palm against the pole, but I mean, to me, that's just sort of like the first tiny piece that makes contact. Yeah.
But you don't want it to be high. You want to keep it down low toward the actual, like the base, like almost where your wrist meets your forearm.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to like pry your hand back with the pole. You want to basically hit the pole so that your whole forearm is bracing your hand basically as you make contact.
Gotcha.
And it's good training for your wrist. It's the kind of thing that, like, if you haven't done sumo in a while, or for you guys, if you haven't done sumo ever, it'll get your wrists comfortable, because in sumo there's a lot of impact on the wrist, and you want to have good, strong, stable wrists. And so training with Teppo will really help with that.
Gotcha. A couple other things I'm noticing as you're doing this. You've got your hands turned out. We don't have our fingers pointing towards the ceiling as we're doing that. We're kind of keeping our hands a little bit rounded with the fingers pointing at 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So one way you might imagine it is almost imagine like you're hitting a guy in the chest and sort of lifting him up under his armpit. And I realize so much of what I'm doing is not useful to your viewers because we see each other on camera and they don't. But you'd imagine that you're hitting a guy kind of on the chest and lifting him up under the armpit. So yeah, you can sort of imagine yourself doing that to the pole.
Okay. So just imagine you're
Gotcha.
lifting somebody up underneath the armpits.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and we're not slapping like you said you want to hit with the meat of your hand as opposed to your fingers. We're not slapping it. We're trying to push it. We want it to move backwards and we want to strike it hard.
Exactly. It's a good hard strike. You don't have to kill the pole. It's not like you're throwing a punch. It's just sort of a repetitive training exercise. But yeah, you want to get a good hard strike, and it's not a slap. You push all the way through.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. I noticed you mentioned the training your wrists part. I know for me, what I'm planning to use, I also have a heavy bag that's normally hanging from the ceiling. I took it down because it's in the Suriyashi path anyways. So maybe I'll just put it elsewhere. But yeah, when I first started with just boxing on a heavy bag, for a few days right away, my wrists would be very sore just because it's not something that's used to taking the impact. Is this something where we're going to expect a little bit of soreness, kind of like that, or is it more just we want to build up strength?
You might get a little bit of soreness, but take this slow. You don't have to push it. So it's not like boxing where you're going to break your wrist if you do it wrong. You should do this at a slow enough pace that you kind of work yourself up. No, you feel a little bit of soreness in your wrist, but more than that, it'll probably feel good. You feel your wrist getting stronger, getting a little bit looser.
If we don't have a heavy bag or say a pole or anything that we could practice with, is there another alternative?
Get creative. I've seen guys try it with trees. I don't know if you have any trees, but it would have to have pretty smooth bark. To be honest, I'm not sure. I've always had either a pole or a heavy bag. Oh, but the one thing I will warn you is I've broken the sheetrock a couple places because I put the heavy bag against the wall and do these, and just little by little it starts not all at once, but just little by little the crack will start to form. So try to find a door jamb or somewhere that's sort of stabilized and supported for this, and then ideally you'd have a proper post for this, but we got to do what we can here in the US.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind as a potential alternative, and I'm sure there's a solid reason I don't want to do this, but if I've got a concrete foundation in my basement, just the wall itself, I'm sure it wouldn't be as good, but is there any specific reason that would be a bad thing to just kind of, if I'm just looking for something to thrust against?
Yeah, it would change the positioning of your hand when you make impact, and probably put your shoulder and elbow and wrist all in a sort of awkward compromised position. So there's something nice about having that rounded surface to connect with. It's a little bit more ergonomic, if that makes sense. I've seen guys do this against a wall, but it looks super awkward. So if you're really doing this for volume, I wouldn't. So just try to find something that can sort of give you that slightly rounder shape. And I wish I had an easy answer.
Yeah, but, get a very, very firm pillow and duct tape it to that concrete wall instead of just hitting the wall. Maybe. No, I'm sure that we could figure out some other ideas.
You brought up something there in that last thing you said. So with your elbows, do you want to keep them in tight? You don't want to wind up and actually go. You don't want to wind your shoulder like you're gonna jump or lunge forward. You want to keep everything still in tight and then thrust.
Yeah, everything in tight and then thrust. So your elbows start right about here, kind of pulled in tight to the front of your ribs, and
almost
then you'll thrust
from
there.
Okay.
Almost, not quite to your belly button, but as close as you could reasonably get, right? It's going to be kind of tight against your ribs, and then you'll thrust from there. And then same thing on the other side, back and forth.
So you're thrusting up as you're moving.
It's a 45-degree upward angle. It's always a good thrusting angle for sumo, so I think it's a good thrusting angle for Teppo too, just to get that practice.
Gotcha. So it'll feel more natural when it's a torso instead of a heavy bag.
Exactly, right. And if you get used to kind of just thrusting directly outward, it's not going to be very good for real sumo. So that upward angle is important, because if you can stand a guy up, all of a sudden he becomes much, much lighter.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so you mentioned we're moving our feet forward with each thrust and then back to starting position before we go with our other hand.
Yeah, and that's going to be probably one of the trickiest things for you when you're first getting started, is coordinating the feet with the hands, right? So the right foot moves with the right hand, the left foot moves with the left hand. I'd suggest turning on the camera, tape yourself doing it, compare that with Takeshi, and kind of build from there. It's going to be awkward at first.
Looking forward to it. I'm
This will be
sure.
fun.
I'm sure my wife, who will end up with the camera, is looking forward to it even more. But yeah. So one other thing I was hoping you could help us out with here. Give us a quick example of like what tempo you'd be going after. What, like, maybe where we should start versus where we should end up when it's routine, or what do you think there?
I think a good place to shoot for would be about 5 minutes at Teppo. Start with that, and you should be able to get that pretty early on, but you might have to take some breaks. So if you did like 5 1-minute sets or something like that, don't kill yourself here. This isn't like Shiko, where I'm going to say, oh, you got to do 200 a day right away. Don't kill yourself. Work up into this so that it feels good and feels comfortable. So start with 5 minutes. If that's broken up into a few different sets, that's fine. And build up to like 10 minutes. It's a lot easier to time this than to count it. So just put on a timer and you can kind of get into a rhythm and enjoy it. It's about coordination and fluidity and sort of feeling a little bit like a sumo wrestler as you're doing it. So, make sure you feel good. Don't do awkward feeling Teppo.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So yeah, what about like how fast, like one thrust to the next? Like, are we talking like, we're not trying to go as fast as possible, obviously. We're trying to be like, but I'm curious, like how fast would you recommend, just so we have something in our mind, like where we should be thinking about?
So like, this is so dumb. I'm tempted to show you, but again, this is not going to help our listeners too much. Go ahead and you could take a look at Takeshi's Sumo channel for this, or if I can just kind of talk you through it, it would be like 1, 2, 3, something along the lines of those pace, right? So it's not too fast. It's yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why in my head I keep picturing it as much faster, but that makes a lot of sense if you're stepping forward and stepping back for each thrust. You know, that 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, give or take. That makes a lot more sense to me. I'm doing pretty good. Mac, you got any other questions on Teppo?
No, other than I've just been brainstorming on what I'm going to practice against, because I don't even have concrete in my basement. So I'm going to have to get creative when I do this.
Yeah, keep us posted. Maybe we should make a post on Twitter or something, see if we can get some creative examples of stuff other people have tried from home.
Yeah, you know what? I'll ask around a little bit too.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
You know, especially since the start of this pandemic, and we could talk more about this sometime down the road, but I've been coming up with all kinds of weird things. I've been carrying around wheelbarrows and, dragging crates of weights up a hill. I've been doing all kinds of different things. I've been doing cleans with the heavy bag, just trying to come up with all kinds of things to mimic sumo without a real partner here.
Yeah, it's weird. That's for dang sure. But yeah, I think it's good that we're trying this now and looking through in particular this program. We're focusing on the things that you can do at home alone, even if you got to get creative with your training equipment. At least it's a solo thing.
Laundry basket. I got it. I'm gonna load my laundry basket and just got it.
If I know anything about laundry, if the more you pack into the washing machine at a time, the better. So maybe you just Teppo all of the laundry in your whole house into the washing machine for one
My wife will thank me.
There you go. More efficient. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, this will be coming out mid-Basho, but keep an eye out for our actual midway episode that may or may not already be out by the time you're listening to this. We'll probably check in, give or take 3 weeks again, probably. Just obviously the Basho is a little bit more important right now than trying to cram in new fitness routines, right? So It may be maybe about 3 weeks or so before we get to our next episode. But in the meantime, our current routine, we are doing 200 Shiko, 20 crossings of the doyo worth of suriashi, give or take 15 feet per rep, and work up to 5 minutes of Teppo at a 1.5 or 2 second or so pace. Do it in sets if you have to, but 5 minutes total is our goal. And we'll check in with all new sore muscles next time with Ed from the United States Sumo Federation. Ed, what can people do to follow you and the Sumo Federation if they are interested?
So for the Federation, check out ussumo.org. We're at ussumo.org, and there's a whole starting sumo section of the website where you can learn about how to start sumo. Even if you have no experience and you live out in the middle of Iowa, there are things you can do to get started in sumo. So check us out there, and you can always find me as well at the Real Sumo Ed. I'm on Instagram. It's at the Real Sumo Ed.
And Amita, Amita Sumo Dojo. That's the YouTube channel that will have some videos for you to follow along on. You can also find links to that from the Learn About Sumo section on the ussumo.org website. So plenty of resources out there. Feel free to send us posts on Instagram or Facebook or what have you if you want to hear more about how ours is going. And spoiler alert, it'll probably be, like I said, a new set of sore muscles. But one by one, we will kick those muscles into shape. Leave us a review and all that junk that Ryan says. Search for Grand Sumo Breakdown on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's the other one that we got.
I was about to say, come on, you can do this, Jake. Twitter.
And Mac, you have something new for our blog coming out eventually here?
I do. So the amazing people over at Lone Star Sumo just posted their tournament from this past September, and I have finished watching it. Very impressed, just like the Consulates Cup. Very impressed with those that participated. Love seeing sumo here on the home front. So my review of that will be coming out soon.
That'll be on our blog, grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com.
And if you want to reach out to us or just tell us how we're doing, drop us a line at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com or give us a call at 805-613-7866. That's 805-613-SUMO.
Lastly, before we go, Ed, why don't you tell us your favorite move that you will do to all of our listeners who do not wear a mask out there?
Ooh, I like that question. Let's go with
they're not wearing a mask, so by all means, do whatever you think is the most brutal.
Yes.
Let's go with a good old-fashioned akebono style skidashi. Just a good hand to the face, right? That'll be your mask and straight out the doyo.
There you go. Just power that coronavirus right back into them. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again for joining us, Ed. We will see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time, throw your salt high
and keep moving forward.